These charges you saw in the firearm charges are the lowest hanging fruit in that I think they're the easiest to prove. You don't need to show intent. You just have to show that he's an ex-felon, check, and that he was in possession of a firearm, check. Also, for the second charge of obliterating the serial number, I mean, it is what it is. Those are good charges. They can get you up to 10 years in prison per charge, and they'll keep him in lockdown, in jail, pending trial, because the feds are making the argument to the magistrate that this guy is a threat to the community, is a danger. And so he's not going to get out before trial. And I do expect that there may be other charges forthcoming, perhaps aggravated assault with a firearm against a federal law enforcement officer. According to reports, he pointed his AR or AK-47 style rifle at a Secret Service agent. That'll get you up to 20 years if they decide to pursue that charge.
Wow. We heard from your governor, Ron DeSantis, who says, quote, "We're going to do a state-level investigation," asked in a news conference a short time ago by reporters this morning. He says, quote, "We do believe there were multiple violations of state law." Dave, what's the governor talking about in terms of a state-run investigation, knowing the FBI is already at this? How will it work?
Well, he knows how to capture headlines. I think he's referring to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement under his control, which is a very professional law enforcement agency. And I guess they're going to be doing a separate investigation. That's in addition to the investigation by the Secret Service and in addition to the investigation by Congress, a bipartisan investigation that incorporates the first attempted assassination. So this is just yet another layer of investigations, and I'm sure, it'll be a popular move in MAGA world.
And does that make a case like this inherently more complicated if you have so many different players seeking similar answers, Dave, or is it actually helpful to have state and federal and congressional officials all involved?
Well, Kaylee, the investigation by DeSantis and by Congress is not as to whom shot or fired the gun. It's how did it get to that point? What breakdowns occurred within the Secret Service? They're trying to fix the issues within Secret Service. And that's why the feds are better equipped at it than the state. Now, to my knowledge, DeSantis is not duplicating the federal investigation of this particular crime because there's not going to be state charges here. This is a federal case where there will be federal charges. So I think what Governor DeSantis is talking about is to investigate how someone was able to breach the shrubbery, the property of Mar-a-Lago without Secret Service, the golf club without Secret Service knowing about it. So, some would call that political, others would call it smart politics, whatever it is. I don't think it's necessarily important right now. I think the most important thing is to fix the problems within the Secret Service and to also make sure you've got the right charges against this guy so he's held accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
Dave, how would any American go about acquiring an AK-47, a foreign-made semi-automatic weapon?
Joe, with all the talk about we need more money for Secret Service to guard the president and the former president, with all the talk about the heated rhetoric in our political culture, why aren't we talking about the easy access to guns, especially weapons of war, semi-automatic weapons that are used in mass shootings? Perhaps it's a little too easy for a guy with a lengthy felony rap sheet to get access to this AK-47 style rifle. Maybe we should discuss that, but it doesn't seem like the politicians want to have that conversation. They'd rather talk about the fact that Democrats are using overheated language and Trump's using overheated language. Yeah, okay, well, there's some of that on both sides. But if we're not going to talk about easy access to guns, then I think you're not really dealing with the problem.
Dave, just to have an understanding, given one of the crimes he was charged with is possessing a firearm despite being a felon, it was illegal for him to have this weapon, right? This was not something obtained legally. He couldn't own guns legally, is my understanding.
That's correct. But the fact is, you see these weapons still on the streets so easily accessible. You used to have a assault weapons ban in this country. And I know that assault weapons ban was not perfect. But the fact is it made it harder to get access to these weapons. We don't even have that. I mean, that's like bare minimum. You don't even want to try at the federal level to make it harder to get access to these weapons of war. So yes, we're going to prosecute him after the fact for being a felon in possession of an AK-47 style rifle. But why was he able to get such easy access to this weapon to begin with? And until we talk about the easily accessible weapons, like in this case, like the case where the young man in Georgia got access to a simpler weapon and then shot up a school, then we're really doing a disservice, because you're not dealing with the full problem. And meanwhile, we'll do these grandstanding investigations of how the guy got past Secret Service. Okay, that's fine, but you need to talk about the guns, or else you're not talking about the whole problem.
As we spent time with Dave Aronberg, Palm Beach County State Attorney, can you bring us in the room for a moment? Yesterday, Dave, we just showed our viewers and listeners a snippet of the sheriff talking in what was, I'm sure, a very stressful moment for law enforcement in Florida yesterday. What was it like behind the scenes? How did the sheriff do?
Sheriff was great, and he really led the coordinated effort among local, state, and federal officials. It was like you would imagine it. There were no turf wars. We met beforehand around a table and discussed who would go first, and we at the state level were going to go first with a motion for pretrial detention so this guy would not slip through the cracks and be released. We were going to go first with the warrants to arrest him for state crimes. And then after the press conference, the federal officials told me that they had decided to move forward with charges. And so we then stood down. And that's the way it should be. There was no turf war. We are happy to defer to the feds. They're the right agencies to deal with this. And so we've been working really well together. And there is a press conference again today at 4 p.m. I won't be at this one, but it will be with the sheriff and federal officials. That's the type of cooperation you want to see.
And finally, Dave, considering the investigations into the first attempt on Trump's life from back in July are still ongoing, there's many questions still unanswered. How quickly, at least in terms of the legal aspect and the actual prosecution of the suspect in question, do you expect this process will play out?
Well, as compared to the first one, you have a live suspect, and we want to know exactly what motivated him. It's important to know, so we're going to look thoroughly through his social media, through all his statements, all his posts. And what we're seeing right now is a guy who has a screw loose, who is very zealous about the war in Ukraine, and he's on the right side of that one, thinking that the Ukrainians are the good guys and the Russians are the bad guys in this one. Yes, I would agree, but he seems to take everything a step too far. He's out there trying to recruit Afghans to fight in the war, and he's so upset about what's happening that he's going to get a semi-automatic weapon and try, apparently, to assassinate a former president. He's lost his sense of morality. If he's able to see the good in the Ukrainians and the bad in Putin, but unable to see how evil his alleged act would have been to try to kill former President Trump. So, yeah, clearly he's not all there. But then again, normal people don't try to commit crimes like this.
Dave, we're out of time, but I have to ask you about something that just emerged from court earlier. This court filing about this individual finds that he apparently was camped out waiting for Donald Trump to appear for more than 11 hours, that he was in that so-called shooter's nest that Brian Gant referred to for 11 hours, according to cell phone location data obtained by the FBI. Does that in any way change the contours of this case and the way you're looking at it?
No, this has always been an investigation of an attempted assassination of the former president. The fact that he hid for 11 hours does help us understand how he got by Secret Service, which was all over Mar-a-Lago. But it is a little too easy to sneak through the bushes and to look through that fence. But fortunately, the Secret Service saw him before he could do anything. And the Secret Service are the only ones, according to my information, that fired shots. After shots were fired against him, he then ran and fled. But it does show you the lengths people will go to try to do bad things.